Everybody, welcome back to the Body Mass YouTube channel. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Virginia. I'm one of the owners at Body Mass Gym, and today I'm going to be talking about my third trimester of pregnancy and the workouts I've been doing. So I had you guys submit questions on Instagram that you have based off of some of the workouts that I've been doing, as well as questions for my husband, Chris. So he and I own Body Mass together, and he's been, going to the gym with me for 9 years since we've known each other, but especially throughout this pregnancy. So I think some of the questions might be relevant specifically for me, but some of them he can definitely chime in on and help answer and give maybe a little bit more perspective and thought. So if you guys haven't watched any of the previous videos, I've kind of been tracking along my entire pregnancy. I'm now at the very, very end, so there's 9 months kind of tracking along the way. But even what I was doing prior to becoming pregnant. So I compete in bikini. Previously to that, I competed in figure for years and years. And once I became pregnant, I obviously stopped with those goals and am now just focusing on staying healthy and as active as possible throughout my pregnancy. All right, so we'll get Chris on here and he'll help answer some of these questions. All right, so if you guys have not met Chris yet, I don't even know if you're on any of the YouTube videos for the Body Mass channel.
I think I'm taking all the videos.
Yeah, Chris isn't so much the in front of the camera guy, but now he is. But yeah, so these were questions that people had just submitted on Instagram. I just put up one of the question boxes and was like, let me know what questions you guys have. So some of these are for people, are from people who currently are pregnant or are thinking about becoming pregnant. Some I think aren't even pregnant at all. So just good questions to ask. Okay, you want to read them? Yeah, read the first one.
All right, so question number 1. Do's and don'ts when it comes to strength training during certain trimesters.
Cool. Okay, so this I'm going to kind of speak of from kind of a scientific trainer perspective as well as a pregnant person perspective, because even though I've been certified as a pre and postnatal trainer for several years, I think as I've gone through it physically myself, it's kind of felt a little different, and I've kind of had a little bit of a different perspective than just kind of the textbook version that you're taught when you take a course. So first trimester, from a kind of more sciencey standpoint, first trimester is kind of like the rule of thumb is just continue to do what you've been doing, meaning you don't want to try to like set any kind of new crazy fitness goals. But if you've been strength training, you can continue with that. So that's kind of the textbook answer. From my perspective with strength training in the first trimester was literally just like physically go to the gym and don't worry about what I'm doing for a workout. Like, I don't know, do you remember in first trimester, like, I feel like I would just like hang out on a foam roller a lot, or I would just kind of like casually walk on the treadmill. I feel like it was just like
whatever you felt like that day you did.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I wasn't following a plan at all.
But you had like ups and downs where some days you felt good and you did more than other days, and then you were just kind of like, all right, today I feel like this, and then you just did that.
And I think a lot of that was based off of how I was feeling energy-wise, like not drinking coffee and not eating normally because I felt a little crappy. So yeah, I think the more personal perspective was just kind of doing what feels good. The more sciencey perspective during first trimesters, keep doing what you've been doing. During second trimester, maybe a little bit of the end of first trimester, but during second trimester, especially, I noticed changes in the hormone elastin. So your body starts to produce this hormone called elastin that allows your body to be a little bit looser in your ligaments to help, especially at the pelvis and the low back, but to help support like growing a human and preparing for childbirth. And from a science perspective, it's your body will become a lot more flexible. The weird thing with that is like it's not flexibility in the way you think of typical flexibility. It's not like, oh, you can like bend over and touch your toes a lot easier, or doing these like yoga positions are easier. It's more a lack of stability. And so that's the biggest thing that I noticed in second trimester is I was significantly less stable, especially on lower body exercises. So lifting was tough. Like I did not want to lift very heavy because I just like felt very unstable in my SI joints and my low back and like my pubic symphysis, like the front of my pelvis. So for lower body stuff, second trimester, I mostly like stayed with body weight or really lightweight stuff and tried to like concentrate on feeling the movement more than.
I feel like we did a lot of single leg stuff, a lot of glute stuff.
Yeah, lots of glute stuff and lots of single leg stuff for sure. And then also at second trimester is definitely the point where your body is physically starting to change more. So one thing, if you guys saw a few videos back when I talked about the things I learned during pregnancy, was avoiding anything that caused that coning in my abdomen that would kind of exacerbate diastasis recti. So if you guys haven't watched that video, that's like a huge thing that I learned. I talk about it a lot in one of my previous videos. So I stayed away from any type of strength training that would aggravate that. Anything that put a lot of stress on the muscles of my core and abdomen, obviously not doing core work, but like push-ups, I don't do any of that because that puts a lot of stress on those muscles. Anything where you're kind of in that prone position. Obviously nothing laying on your belly. But the other thing with that is a lot of the kind of textbook answer is not doing things where you're laying on your back. But a lot of times I felt okay. Generally, if you're laying on your back, the reason is you can kind of reduce blood supply, but you feel what that feels like. And I can't describe what it feels like, but like, if you've been laying on your back too long because stuff just doesn't feel right. But anything that I was doing workout-wise, that never really aggravated it. I didn't do a lot laying on my back, but like glute bridges, like you start on your back, or like
I feel like
do some dumbbell chest press.
I feel like all the pregnant women we've trained, that's never been a problem.
Yeah.
Because you're on your back for 20 seconds. It's not like you're doing a whole workout on your back.
And I'm a back sleeper, and like even if I fall asleep on my side, I wake up on my back and I'm okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's kind of the textbook answer is not doing stuff laying on your back, but the practical answer is for me, it felt okay. So I did that. And then third trimester, was just kind of controlling the amount of weight that I lifted. There were some days where I felt good and I felt pretty strong, especially on upper body stuff. And I'll go moderately heavy for what my strength is. And lower body stuff, still keeping it pretty light because I would still feel a lot of that elastin in my hips. But obviously at third trimester, it's just doing what physically feels okay and listening to your body because you're way bigger and your spatial awareness is totally different. So it was more just kind of like seeing what felt okay.
Yeah, I feel like physically you couldn't do a lot of the stuff that maybe you felt like you could do, but you just couldn't get in the right position or were just uncomfortable there, and you just made adjustments that way.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was pretty similar to your first trimester of just do the stuff that feels good and keep the volume and weight moderate.
Yeah. And so those are kind of like both the textbook answers as well as my personal experience of do's and don'ts during the different trimesters for strength.
Spending every minute together, I found it quite hard, quite lovely. You start me up like no one has ever could. You feel my fire. I took a bite, and now I need more. I don't know how to make this right. 'Cause you're right, yeah, you're right. We are going too fast.
So next one, can you explain how you've been able to lift moderately during?
I think that probably just cut off
Yeah.
ends like during pregnancy. Honestly, your body will guide you on it. For me, I'm a very competitive person. I'm still competitive. But I realized like during this time, like my body's telling me like I'm not going to be setting any kind of like PRs. I'm not going to be doing anything like overly impressive. So for me, it was more like the habit and the routine of getting to the gym and working out. And my body told me like stuff just doesn't feel great. So it's like almost like my body's telling me that like don't go too heavy. And the other thing, like I had mentioned, is that previous video when I had talked to Dr. Carrie Pagliano, she kind of told me to like check my ego, and sometimes I think I need to hear that from a third party. So having her kind of tell me in a very nice, like subtle way, but it's okay to check your ego now. You don't need to worry about trying to do anything impressive now. And a lot of the women she sees for pelvic floor physical therapy postpartum say like if they went back, they would have rather taken it a little bit slower. You know, they don't.
She said no one would ever regret like lifting less or like doing less.
Yes, exactly. They do regret doing too much and maybe having more issues down the line. So that was a kind of check that I needed to hear from a professional about encouraging me to stay lifting moderately and not feeling like I have to send any PRs.
You're pretty easy to like when your body is closer to mine. You got me feeling like there's no one other than you who can make me lose my mind. You start me up like no one has ever could. You fuel my fire. What are the odds we end up loving this? Spending every minute together. I found it quite hard, quite lovely. You start me up like no one has ever could. You fuel my fire, fire, fire.
Okay, next question.
All right, so how do you stay motivated during pregnancy to work out when you won't get results?
That's a good question. And so I think a lot of that has to do, competing really helps a lot for me because it's such a long-term goal that it's not necessarily thinking about what is the immediate return of what I'm doing in the moment, but what's like the long-term end result. So like, for example, with competing, when you're bulking, you're trying to build muscle, it's very counterintuitive to a lot of people's goals of like, in this moment, I need to eat more, do less cardio so I can build muscle, even though that kind of goes against like getting lean for a show, but it's like what you need to do in the moment. So I've applied that mentality a lot to my workouts during pregnancy is if I'm doing this now, then once I have the baby and I'm back to working out, it'll make it easier or it'll make it better, or I won't be in as much of dug myself in as much of a hole.
Yeah.
So it's more thinking about like, okay, a little bit now, like that sum of all of the little days' efforts lead to postpartum being able to get back on track a little easier and a little faster.
Yeah, I think everyone views like getting results in it's like a immediate thing. Like I need to get results now. But if you look at it, like you said, from a long-term picture, it's like I want to stay strong or I want to stay lean. You can still achieve that like within a pregnancy by viewing it as right now I need to maintain or I need to like minimize what changes happen, and then in the long run I will be able to do the thing I want to do.
Yes.
So it's just like any other block of training that we do. It's like sometimes we're working on power, sometimes we're working on strength. Like during a pregnancy,
sometimes you're doing something where it's a back off week.
Yeah, and during a pregnancy, you can look at that kind of as this is just a block of training that is.
That's a good way to phrase it.
Is kind of maintenance, but if I maintain that, then I'm putting myself in a position in the long run to continue to get results.
I think that's exactly it. Is like putting myself in a position in the long run to be able to pick up, do what I need to do, and put myself in a better position. So that helps keep me motivated. And for me, going to the gym is kind of my, even though we own a gym, we're at a gym all day long, but like going to a different gym to work out is kind of my me time during the day. So even during first trimester, when I was saying I just kind of was like physically going to the gym, being at the gym is kind of my me time or like our us time during the day. And so it's a lot easier to stay motivated to go to the gym when that's kind of like our break during the day, and it gives us like a chance to step away from body mass, go somewhere else, see different people. It just breaks up our day a little bit. And so I think that also helps keep me motivated.
For sure.
Is like the habit and the routine of going to the gym. I really like doing that, and I want to make sure I keep that up postpartum.
Fire, you feel my fire, fire, fire. You feel my fire, fire, fire. You feel my fire. Let's keep this fire alive. Let's keep this fire alive. You start me.
Next one is, how are you going to balance working out when the baby gets here?
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer to that yet. I think one of the biggest benefits is Chris and I don't typically work out at Body Mass, but we have 2 gyms where we can work out if we need to, and the good thing is we can bring the baby with us. She can hang out there while we work out, so like we can always, like that's always an option for us. I think it's just kind of like how we're going to balance work, is we just take turns. And so, there's going to be times where Chris watches the baby and I'm working out, and there's times that I'm watching the baby and Chris works out. I think I'd said this on Instagram before. One of the things that kind of, makes me sad or I'm going to miss is right now we kind of pick up and just go to the gym in the middle of the day when we have downtime, or like, we'll do it on a Friday night as kind of like our date night and then go to dinner. And we won't be able to do that as easily. So I think I'd be a little sad and miss that piece of it, I think.
It's not. I think the people that are successful in fitness or maintaining fitness are the ones that are able to adjust as life happens. And I think everyone can get really good results when life is perfect. They have all the time.
But life's never perfect.
Not all the time in the world, but life's not perfect, and things change. You have kids, you have a job change, you move, your office shuts down. Stuff is always going to happen, but the people who maintain really good fitness are ones that still find a way to get it done. I feel like that's what you've always done, whether it's opening a gym or training for a competition or what, you always just figure out how do you get it done. And I think from like a training perspective, there's like that idea of minimal effective dose. Like you're just gonna figure out how can I get things done working out less or working out shorter.
Like be more efficient with your
there's
time.
just a way to be more efficient, and
it's probably gonna be planning more. Like right now we can just we don't have a set time that we go to the gym necessarily, but it's probably gonna be just like working it into a schedule a little bit more once we're back working. And
let's just figure out how to do it a different way. But
Yeah.
I don't think like that stops you from, like, just because it's not how it was before doesn't mean you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I like what you said about like people wait for things to be perfect, and the ones that are successful figure out ways to make it happen regardless. And that's what we're gonna do, is we'll figure out, like, I don't know what that looks like now, but we'll find out soon enough.
And that's how it's always going to be. Like, you don't ever know how it's going to be, but you just figure it out.
Take all of COVID 2020 as an example. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, what happens when you don't have a gym?
Right.
Like, what happens because you're in lockdown, or what happens when you travel, or what happens when this happens. Like, you just figure out a way to get it done.
I like that.
No one has ever could. You feel my fire. What are the odds we end up loving it? Spending every minute together. I found it quite odd, quite lovely. You start me up like no one has ever could. You feel my fire, fire. Let's keep this.
I think there's one more.
What fitness goals do you and Chris have after you have the baby?
Do you want to start for you first?
I think mine is just do what you just talked about. Like, I say that like it's easy, but I think for me it's like our life has definitely changed and how we're going to do things. So my goal is just to figure out what's a manageable routine that I can get into, and I think I struggle with that anyways. When it's not perfect, I have a hard time getting it done.
But you did good, like, early on. I remember, I don't know if there was just like a lot going on at the gym or whatever, but like you got really good at being like, if I only have 30 minutes, doing 30 minutes of something is better than nothing. And you kind of made a joke, but you're like, well, that might be what it's like when the baby's here. And if it's like 30 minutes of not an ideal workout, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's continued to do that, and I think not being afraid to do things different, but also I think we preach this all the time, and I think it's time that I have to do it, is when your workouts aren't optimal, the one thing that you can really control is still nutrition. Like we're
that's true.
home more, we can prep food more. There's like going to be a lot of ways that I can improve my nutrition, and that's something I struggle with when it's really busy. So for me, it will just be shift my focus to improving nutrition, and if anything, that's the thing that goes the longest way. So I think it's kind of like we said with COVID, is you look at
what can you control,
what can you control, and you just maximize that, and then when the other stuff changes, you have a chance to do the same thing again with a different aspect. So that's my goal.
Do you have any like programs specifically or anything you want to follow, like from a more
Craig is gonna write the new body mass programs, so the semi-private one, so I'm gonna do it. So for me it will be,
that's good.
Yeah, so for me it will be a good, like, it's like having 4 hours a week. It's like seeing what our regular clients that don't have access to a gym goes through. Yeah, so I'm gonna go through his program, and I think that'll be a good, I'll be like any other person.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have 4 hours to get it done. So how about you?
Well, this kind of, I think a lot of it is like the purpose of doing these videos. Maybe not the purpose, but it's kind of the continued journey. And as I've continued to say, my goal is to compete again. I don't know what the timeline looks like on that. I think if I were to put a tentative goal out there, like I want to compete in 2022. It's weird to say that. It's crazy. But I'd like to get on stage again. Prior to getting pregnant, I started working with Paul Ravila, and I really enjoyed working with him. And I really was appreciative of him when, I signed up to train with him for a year, and 3 months into it, I had to call him up and tell him that I was pregnant, that I'm taking a little bit of a break from competing. And he was super helpful and supportive with that. So my big goal is to just get back on stage. I don't have any set expectations of what that looks like. I mean, obviously my end goal has been to earn my pro card, but that's not something that I'm like set in stone. It's figuring out the balance of how do I work my personal individual fitness goals with being a mom and not taking way too much time of spending that with my baby. That's one of my biggest goals. I think one of my other big goals as it relates to fitness is figuring out kind of how I can incorporate fitness with the baby. So like if that means like I go for long walks with her in the stroller instead of like spending that 30 minutes at the gym on the treadmill, or if I like go for hikes, like figuring out like what are hikes that I can do where we like I have her with us. So it's just how do I balance, and that's kind of a vague goal, but how do I balance like motherhood with fitness and make that be part of what I do?
Vague.
Yeah.
But I think that's the running theme has been the running theme for you. And I think anyone that's successful, again, in long-term fitness is like, how do you manage to evolve with your fitness routine, your fitness goals as your life changes?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's going to be times where everything is optimal, and then there's going to be times where it's not. But how do you evolve with that and still continue to do it? And
I think a lot of that, like to your point, is how do you evolve with it, and it's going to look different. But with having a baby is how do I kind of instill an interest and passion in fitness to her, because just looking back on my life, like my mom was very influential in my passion for fitness. Like she worked part-time at a gym when I was growing up. She used to teach water aerobics classes, and I remember being like a 10-year-old little, like, my nickname was Skeletor in gymnastics because I was a skinny little child. And I'll be like this 10-year-old skeleton child in the pool with women who are probably like in their 60s and very overweight in their like floral skirt bathing suits. But I would just go, and it was a fun thing to do. And I really think that that's what instilled my passion for fitness. And I'd like to, be able to instill a positive approach to fitness and a positive approach to things like body image and nutrition with my daughter. So I think that's kind of one of my fitness goals, is how do I maybe start that early on and make it be something that we do together that down the line leads to an interest for her in fitness and taking good care of herself.
That's good.
So,
I like that.
yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so I think I have one final question because normally it's just me on here. Overall, have you noticed, or maybe what have you noticed has changed in my approach to fitness during pregnancy from maybe what it was prior?
I would say before you were much more rigid, and I think that comes from like years of competing of this is what I need to do, and then get that done regardless. I think through your like it didn't matter if you had 10 clients and no time and you knew your workout was going to take 2 hours, you were going to find 2 hours and get that workout done.
Yeah.
I feel like throughout the pregnancy, it's been, this is what I can do. What can I do within that time? Or what can I do within how I'm feeling? Or what can I do, with what I have? So I feel like that's where you've changed, is going from this is what I need to do to this is what I can do. And I feel like you've just been equally successful in whatever goal you have during this time frame, like taking a totally different approach. And I think that's kind of been, from my point of view, I feel like it's been good for you to learn that like you can still, again, get it done without it being such a rigid, structured kind of workout program.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you noticing that, because I feel that myself. Like, I just remember when I was doing figure, I would always work out for 6 days a week, no matter what, no matter how tired I was, what I was doing, where I was traveling, what I was doing in life. And then when I switched to bikini, it was a little less rigid, just because I think the goal for bikini for me just meant I didn't need to spend as much time in the gym. But now, to be honest, like during this shift to training during pregnancy, I feel really good physically. I feel really good mentally. I feel like I'm like in a good headspace with it, and I'm not hard on myself, and I'm like giving myself a lot more grace during this, and I didn't used to do that to myself.
Yeah, maybe that's the key, or the key takeaway from all this is like, don't set yourself up to fail. Like, I feel like that's what you've done really well, is just by rolling with the punches and saying, I'm okay with what I have, or what I can do, versus having this really rigid idea. Like, back to the question of like, how do you get results? How do you maintain? How do you do this? Like, I think it's throwing those questions out the window and just saying, how do I be healthy? How do I operate within like the cards I am dealt? How do I keep my eyes on the long-term goal? And then that kind of has kept you in a really good headspace versus saying, like, I can't work out 6 days a week. I don't have 2 hours. I don't have energy. Like, because then it's like negative. First, just thinking like, today I felt good. That was awesome. Or, I've been really good with my nutrition through this. And I think just keeping it positive, that's probably been like the best thing for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And get yourself somebody supportive in your life. That helps a whole lot. The other thing that I've really been trying to add in more consistently during my third trimester, in addition to the strength training, is going to the chiropractor. So if you had seen my previous video about the things that I was kind of doing outside of the gym to stay in shape, I had included that on there as well. But Dr. Shara is a chiropractor, but she really specializes in pregnant women and postnatal women. So it was helpful to go see her for a variety of reasons. Number one, she was able to help me with how to tape my ankles to help reduce some of the swelling in my ankles, which was hugely helpful. She was able to kind of explain how the taping technique worked on lymphatic drainage through my ankles, which was awesome. In addition to that, she obviously helped adjust my back, my neck, and my hips, which had really gotten out of alignment in the third trimester. As your belly's growing and as it's getting bigger, at least for me, I could really feel, especially my rib cage kind of shift around. It's almost like the baby's in there, and the only way I can describe it is she's physically pressing her feet up against the insides of my rib cage, and it feels like not only is it very tight, but there's a lot of torque that goes into twisting my rib cage, which in turn I feel in my back and my hips. So Dr. Shara was able to really help me with a lot of the kind of tension and misalignment that I had in my back. And she was able to give good advice when it comes to the actual process of childbirth and kind of structurally and anatomically how your body works. So having Chris, my husband, there to film it, and kind of her to walk him through it, because you know he's going to be the coherent one during childbirth, but to have him there to be able to let her kind of explain what I might be going through, how I might be feeling, was just really helpful. So I videoed some of my last visit to see Dr. Shara, so you guys can kind of hear a little bit about what she's saying and some of the stuff that she's doing. If you guys are interested in learning more about her, I highly, highly recommend following her on Instagram. So I'll put her Instagram name up here, but just go on, follow her. She has a bunch of great information. Like I said, she focuses on pregnant and postnatal women, but she's a chiropractor for everybody.
I'm just gonna check the pubic bone real quick. No tenderness, no pain.
No.
That's really good. Let's check. Oh, she's like right up there.
Yeah, you feel it. That's where it feels like she's pushing
Yeah.
from the inside. It feels like she's like trying to escape with her feet.
Right. I'm gonna get right up in here underneath
Yeah.
your diaphragm, just kind of release some of this muscle mass right
Yes,
here.
that would be great, because that's
Yeah.
where it feels not good.
Yeah, you
All
know,
day long, I feel like I'm just trying to like rub that area, because
Mhm.
there's just a lot of pressure.
Yeah. We get up in here, and you'll be able to breathe better afterwards.
So that would be great.
That's a little better. Oh yeah. The girl's all up in here. huh?
Yeah.
Ah, perfect. Just checking those muscles, making sure that those hip flexors are nice and even. You know, because they kind of like sit on the outside
Yes.
of them, right?
Yeah. Do you find that most people like postpartum need just as much work as they do when they're pregnant? Probably.
So, different kinds of work. You know, sometimes after they have the baby, like if the baby gets stuck in the canal or something, they'll have some pelvic pain, but mostly postnatally, what moms suffer from is like nursing neck.
Yeah, I saw your post about that the other day. Yeah.
There's like a couple things that you have to kind of modify a little bit when you're, you know, nursing and taking care of a baby. You know, one thing I will say is like your hips spread a little bit so the baby can pass the bowl. So doing some side lying adjustments and like kind of like compressing the hips back together again will help kind of prevent that like butt sag that you get postnatal.
That would be nice. I like that. That would be great.
So you can definitely work on like making sure that you stay on the ankle. There's like a tender spot between the muscle and the actual bone, like right around here.
Okay.
And you can do it on either side, and you press that for like 30 seconds or so. And
Cool. Well, this is the final video before the baby gets here. So after this one, we'll be doing more, at least I'll be doing more about kind of postpartum stuff, what the recovery's like, what I'm doing for workouts, and hopefully answer some of those other questions of how we're figuring out balance and goals and all of that. But if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the Body Mass YouTube channel, and I will see you guys in the next video, all right? Bye.